he's going to be asking this guy, who are the Jews? So I'm just going to play the clip and let you guys hear how he's trying to be strategic. So watch what he does.
Oh, now who are the Jews? Who are the Jews?
Who are the Jews?
Yeah.
God's chosen people.
All right, are all of the tribes of Israel, are they considered to be Jews?
Yeah. The 12 tribes?
No, they're not. So the 12 tribes, there was a split in the kingdom, right? The split, it was Benjamin, it was Judah, Benjamin, and Levi. That was the southern kingdom. The northern kingdom was the other tribes. So if you was only considered a Jew if you was from the southern kingdom. If you wasn't in the southern kingdom, you was not considered to be a Jew. So the northern tribes, they were considered Gentiles by the Jews, right? The Jews didn't want to deal with them. The Jews didn't want to have no dealings with them.
So then tell me, why was Peter given this revelation?
Because so the northern kingdom were then considered Gentiles because.
Now you guys see that. So this is just a quick example. I'm just going to let Vocab have his take on this real quick. So Vocab, you know from experience, that's typical, where they're basically trying to say that those from the northern tribe, the 10 lost tribes, etc., that they're not from the southern kingdom, and they try to put this division into the text as far as what we know as Gentiles. You know, you don't have to give a huge long response, but just on off the cuff, I mean, what do you think about that? What would you say? Your thoughts?
Well, yeah, Scripture uses those interchangeably by the time you get to the first century, you know, when the New Testament is written. And the reason is a couple of reasons, really. One is, you know, the Romans themselves, they referred to that entire country as Judea. So anybody who lived there, basically, who were part of that area, were called Judeans. And the word Jew is basically derived from that. And for a lot of the other tribes were sort of, misplaced. Not everybody. I mean, we still see examples of northern tribes mentioned in the New Testament here and there, but a lot were lost track of, with the kind of the exception of Levi, and then those in the south, and really that includes Benjamin. Now they would say those are southern, but by that time they were basically used interchangeably, you know. And the reason they try to do that is because then they try to find places where it's only referring to the south, only referring to north. But, you know, when the Bible speaks about it, you see it interchangeably. Herod is the king of the Jews, but Jesus is, when he's crucified, he's called the king of the Jews.
There you go.
And we do see that there are some other people from other tribes still around during that time, specifically Anna. For example, you know, Anna was.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, they say that. I don't usually spend too much time arguing with them about that. But, you know, that's a point that they make. That was Sons of Thunder down there. I saw they're big in, I think, more the southeast part of the United States at camp. But it's not that strong of a point, really, in the first place, you know.
Screen. Obadiah 1:18, and so what they'll do is they'll take this verse here. It says, "In the house of Jacob shall be a fire, in the house of Joseph a flame, in the house of Esau for stubble, and they shall kindle in them and devour them, and there shall not be any remaining of the house of Esau, for the Lord has spoken." And so they'll kind of jump on this verse here and act like this is going to be a future prophecy. And from my understanding, this has already been fulfilled. There are people who kind of divide on as far as the fulfillment. Some will say that, you know, that the invasion of Jerusalem by the Babylonians completed in 586, and then the Nabateans drove them out of Petra, and they were pretty much non-existent after that. There's some people who take that view, but what would you say as far as them trying to take this passage and make it future, or any other? You know, I'm sure you know how they try to use this particular passage.
Yeah, you know, you don't see anymore at a certain point in history, really, anybody from the house the house of Edom mentioned as a distinct people group. They're really not there anymore at a certain point in history. You have Herod mentioned of Idumea. That's how the New Testament refers to Edom, Idumea. You see Herod. And in fact, Agrippa's related him. And it's important for people to understand that in Acts, Paul is before Agrippa and says that he wishes he would be a Christian except for the chains. He says, I wish you would be just like me except for these chains, which is not something that a Hebrew Israelite would say to someone they thought was an Edomite. So it shows that their gospel is not really apostolic.
Right.
So this is already fulfilled. But even if it wasn't already fulfilled, because, when they got to Petra and they looked up those rock cliffs and all that, an archaeologist found that place where the Edomites did dwell. I mean, it was like a ghost town at that point. That's just a fact of history. It's actually an example of, again, what you might call apologetic fulfillment, because you have something prophesied and then it happens, but they want to say it didn't happen. Well, let's just say it didn't happen. That does not in any way prove that modern day people who are descended from Europeans are actually Edomites.
Exactly.
It doesn't in any way prove that. And so even if it wasn't fulfilled, which it was, then it doesn't really help them, because they have not proved or shown that people who are descended from Europeans are actually Edomites. So I just want to point that out to them. It's kind of bizarre to think that they think you basically have like Europeans living in the Transjordan area, because that's where the kingdom of Idumea or Edom was.
Yeah.
It's really strange to me that they think that was the case. You got a bunch of white folks just south of Israel. It's really bizarre kind of schema that they've got laid out. And I don't think they really think about it very much, about how strange it would be to say, yeah, here's all these white people hanging out down there. And that's definitely not the case, that, they were looking like some kind of Europeans or something like that.
So in all of your experience talking to all the different groups, you've never heard them give anything with any substance on trying to put white people in the class of Edomites?
I would say this, their best, for lack of a better word, I got to rephrase, their best argument would be when they point out, now not all of them know this, but they'll point out, which is somewhat true, where you have rabbis later on identifying the Roman Empire as sort of a modern day Edom. So that really happened, and the reason is pretty clear. It's a way for these Jews of that time to say, you're going to suffer the same fate. You're like these nations. And there's a couple instances where you could read some of the things that Rabbi said is almost like, well, are they saying they're blood related? But by and large, it seems to be some kind of symbolic code to say them that. Now, let's just say that was true. Let's just say that somehow we have evidence that Edomites transported over to Italy and then ran Rome or something like that. Let's just say that happened. That still wouldn't be all Europeans. If that was the case, you had Rome and Rome specifically was in some way identified as Edomites and blood ties. It's like, okay, well, but that's not all Europeans. They have to have all Europeans being Edomites. So think about it. You have all these people leaving the Transjordan area and then populating all of Europe. It was not a very big area. It's part of southern Israel and part of modern day Jordan. For the most part, it's modern day Jordan. It's a really strange thought to think that. And, a lot of these people, if that was the case, then Hebrew Israelites that believe they're Hebrew Israelites, they would have to be much closer genetically related to Europeans. Because remember, you're talking about Jacob and Esau as the fountainheads of these people groups. So on the paternal side of the haplogroup, shouldn't it be the same? Because they're twins. But it's not the same.
Yeah.
So, there's a lot of problems with that. But I would say that's probably the strongest argument they use. I mean, they use actually some really bizarre arguments. Like they'll talk about the eagle in association with Edom. And they'll actually say, well, the United States symbol's an eagle, ignoring the fact that lots of powerful nations have used the eagle, including football teams like Philadelphia. So it's insane. It's insane to think that. And then they'll even go, say, look, this is symbolic. The white people like to live in skyscrapers and tall buildings because it says they dwelt in the cleft of the rocks. And they'll even use one passage to say that it's evidence that it's white people because they landed on the moon. Some of them believe the Bible in Obadiah predicts the moon landing by Edomites.
Oh my God.
So, those are not very good. The best they could do is a non-biblical thing, where you do have some rabbis identifying Rome with Edom, mostly in a symbolic, judgmental type of way, though.
Wow.